When most people think about Cadillac, the Escalade is the first vehicle that comes to mind. It is rather iconic for the brand, and they have absolutely owned this segment since 2014, selling over 1 million vehicles. So it's a rather big deal when they electrify the Escalade with this, the new Cadillac Escalade IQ. They say this is the best driving, most maneuverable Escalade ever made, and today we're going to find out what it's like. It's the first full-sized SUV they're building on the Ultium modular platform. They started off with the Lyriq, and then they added the Optic, that's a smaller one. There is a Vistic coming, which is essentially an Escalade that went on a diet, but today we're driving the full-size flagship Escalade IQ. This thing is so absolutely packed with technology and luxury. It's essentially a rolling mansion on wheels. This Escalade IQ has the executive second row package, so let's check out what it includes. There's a screen here in the middle, which we can use to open the doors. So you swipe to open and the doors power open, and then you can swipe to close and the doors will power close. You see some of that ambient lighting shining through. And we also have a tray table, so this is like flying first class or something, right? They pop out here, they hide in the center console area. You can flip them out, and they have a little tray table to put your laptop on, or you want to eat a lunch here or something like that. So we flip this tab right here, rotates up, a little bit of assembly required, and then they flip out. They'll pivot, they'll slide in and out. Not gigantic, but we have tray tables here in the second row. Let me go ahead and fold these back in. There we go, out of the way. Slide it back in. There we go, it's like a multi-step process. Close that. Now this screen here, we can control our climate settings. And then this is for, let's see, where are the seats? Haha, massage. So you have full massage settings that match the front seats here. So I can do relief, level 3, it's currently massaging me. I've got heated and cooled seats. So I can also move this seat front and rear from the screen on this side, either if I want to mess with the passenger or actually properly position the seat for their comfort. Double wireless phone charging pads here, a gigantic storage space below, cup holders, USB-C ports. So this definitely feels very, very nice here in the second row with the executive second row seats. And it should, because it is a $9,500 option to get this second row configuration. We start off in the passenger seat. You can go ahead and pull the handle and the door power closes, and take a look at that gigantic 55-inch pillar-to-pillar display. That is a lot of screen real estate, and it doesn't stop there because we have a lower screen here, as you can tell by the door panel already. Not ideal for filming, but you know, we can't control the weather. So let's go experience the Escalade IQ. Oh, you already turned your massage seat on. Smart man. Professional. I'm gonna go relief, level 3. I'm gonna also turn on my heated seats. There we go. We also have a lot of wireless phone chargers. You have one here on the passenger side, and then there's another one here in the middle. So both driver and passenger can be wirelessly charging your phones on this large center console. Lower screen here for controlling everything from climate to, you saw our seats, the massage, more vehicle controls. We can play around with our rear wheel steering, arrival mode, all sorts of different things. To get out, I can swipe and the door will open for me, or go ahead and close it. I can also just pull up on this handle here. So it's powered, soft close. There's 3 different settings. You can have it open just a little bit. This is the normal one, but it can also go to the max because there's actually even more travel for the door for a bigger opening to get out. So you see we have the power doors. You have slight opening, standard, maximum, and manual. So if I go to maximum opening, it should swing the doors as wide as possible. So I'm gonna go ahead and close it again. It's also soft close, motorizing shut, and then let's pull it. And now we should have the full sweep, making it quite easy to just step right out. Today we're going to be driving this black Escalade IQ, regular wheelbase. They have announced the IQL, which is longer, 4.2 inches longer, but all of that length is essentially going to the third row space. The cargo capacity is a little bit up, but not because of the extended length. That's just because they squared off the roof line a bit. Mechanically, they're all exactly the same wheelbase. The IQL is literally just a bit longer for that third row capacity, but we're driving the regular wheelbase IQ, and it's still plenty gigantic. Let's talk about the powertrain. So obviously fully electrified. The range number is one of the most impressive things about the IQ. 460 miles of rated range, courtesy of a absolutely enormous battery pack. It's got 24 of those Ultium modules. So same with the Hummer EV truck. That's a 205 kilowatt hour battery pack. That is pretty big, but that's how you get that massive range given the fact that this thing weighs 9,000 pounds. It is big. But something really important to note is with the same size battery pack as the Hummer EV, this will do quite a bit more range because it's so much more aerodynamically efficient. Power, it has a lot of power and torque. 750 horsepower, 785 pound-feet of torque when you are in the Velocity Max mode. We'll show you how to access that when we're in the vehicle. 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds, which again, is pretty impressive in something that weighs as much as an entire apartment building, right? All-wheel drive, obviously. It's a lot of pretty ridiculous numbers for the powertrain and the range for the Escalade IQ. So pretty large battery pack, but also decently quick charging with the 800-volt architecture. It can add about 100 miles of range in 10 minutes if you have a fast 350 kilowatt charger. It also has vehicle-to-home bidirectional charging, so if you have the correct equipment, you can use it to power your home if you have an outage, and also vehicle-to-load if you want to power other things too. And lastly, it'll tow 8,000 pounds. So when you're sitting in the passenger seat, this rightmost screen is for you. We have YouTube, Hulu, YouTube Kids, web browser, but you can't see it when you're in the driver's seat, right? So you really can't see this screen because of the polarization.
No, it looks like it's completely off.
So if you go to an angle this way, you can also see it's polarized. Directly head on, it is rather dark still because of the polarization. And you see if I come towards the driver's side, it's completely dark, so it's not distracting. So we have this gigantic fixed glass roof. It is tinted and UV filtering, but there's no sunshade. So we were driving the Optic yesterday, and it does have a shade that retracts, but this one does not have it at all.
It's a giant greenhouse.
It is a giant greenhouse. If you like speakers, oh boy, are you going to love the Escalade IQ. The bass sound system has 21 speakers. Then you go up to the one this one has 38 speakers, AKG. One thing is they don't have Dolby Atmos yet for this 2025 model year. It will be coming in the 2026. So that is a little bit of a disappointment because the Optic we were driving did have Dolby Atmos, but still, 38 speakers. What do you think of the sound system?
It bumps. It's crazy.
Earlier we were playing some tunes at rather high volume levels, and the side view mirrors were vibrating. They were shaking.
My pants were shaking.
It's a pretty immersive, ridiculous sound system. 38 speakers, and if that's not enough, if you get the executive second row seats, it goes up to 42 because they add the 2 headrest speakers, so that's where you get the additional 4. But I mean, 38 speakers is pretty ridiculous. What has more speakers than this thing? I don't think I've been in anything that has more than 42.
No.
Like,
absolutely not.
I remember when like Land Rover did like a 23 speaker Meridian. You're like, oh my God, 23 speakers. Where do you even find that many? That's child's play in comparison. I found a parking structure to take shelter in, so let's do an exterior tour of the Escalade IQ we are driving today. Starting off with the welcome sequence. So I'll go ahead and unlock, and it starts off with the logo in the middle, then the front grille has some lighting, those thin indicators up top, and then the vertical DRL, and then those little individual light segments fill in. So that's the welcome lighting sequence. You also have something similar around back. So let me go ahead, lock the vehicle, and then unlock to start the sequence again. It's got those vertical blade taillights that is intersected with the bodywork. So there's the welcome sequence as it fills in, and the taillights are also really cool. They have this piano key design inside. It really does look like a piano, which is pretty cool. And a difference between the gas version is the gas version have the big vertical blade, whereas this one, the bodywork it cuts through it. So that's a way to visually tell the difference between the gas and the electric version. This was a ground up design, so clean sheet. So it's supposed to visually evoke the other gas versions of the Escalade and other Cadillac EVs, but it has its own distinct take on it, right? The front fascia really resembles the Optic, the Celestic, the Lyric. They're doing a very, very good job with a really distinctive lighting signature, and you can kind of tell it's an Escalade because of the sheer scale, but it's a very more angular look, I think, than the gas-powered Escalade. It's also much more aerodynamically efficient. Lowest coefficient of drag. They have a lot of things like grille shutters up front, the smooth underbody because it's an EV platform, all these little tricks, including like the taillights apparently have this like thinner edge here to kind of help air guide around. So they did all sorts of little tricks to try to maximize aerodynamic efficiency, including a spoiler back here where the windshield wipers are hidden below it. All these things add up to make it as efficient as possible, because with an EV, your aerodynamic efficiency is even more important to try to maximize all the electrons in your battery pack and to maximize range. Now, these wheels, oh boy, these are 24-inch wheels with 35-inch tires. Yeah, those are absolutely enormous, but they kind of fit the overall scale and magnitude of this Escalade. There's a couple different wheel designs available and some pretty cool finishes, but 24-inch wheels, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger with 35-inch tires. We also have a front trunk, so there's a button right down here. We can press that, it will open up, it's sealed away, hidden. It's about 12 cubic feet of storage. We have some miscellaneous stuff just in here. It's actually very, very long. So to reach back there's kind of hard. They have an accessory that you can like slide out here to put your groceries and things like that. But we do have a front trunk in the Escalade IQ, along with an outlet here if you need to charge something, power your electronics. So full front trunk here. We can press that button again and that will close. This one here is finished in black. A lot of Escalades are ordered in more kind of neutral colors, but they have some pretty interesting ones available. There's 6 other colors, two-tone ones. In the studio, there was that kind of maroon, dark red color one. There is a matte blue. It looks pretty nice in white too. I mean, it is unmistakably an Escalade just simply because of the sheer size and scale, but some of the cues definitely still remind you that this is an Escalade, but it's not exactly the same as the gas one. The welcome sequence just keeps triggering as I'm walking around the vehicle. So we have the IQ badge back here. The longer one is IQL. Same wheelbase as this. They just extend the rear and they redid the styling so it's a little more squared off. This is actually pretty aggressively raked here, so it looks a lot sportier in terms of the side profile than the conventional gas-powered Escalade. The IQL, I think, more resembles that boxy, squared off look that a lot of owners may be more used to, so they have the option. And because the wheelbase stays the same between the two, all the dynamics, all of that kind of stuff stays exactly the same between the regular IQ and the IQL. To open the trunk, you can press on the rear badge. There we go. That'll power open. We have an okay amount of cargo space back here. If we open this, there's a little bit more packaging of various things underneath the floor. And then we'll go ahead and close that trunk. On the other side of the trunk, it says 1000 E4. That's the indication of the hierarchy. E4, this is an all-wheel drive model. All the Escalade IQs are dual motor. So that's a quick look at the exterior design of the Escalade IQ. Of course, we have power open and close doors. I've shown you that, played around with that. Oh, I was too close to this one, so it didn't want to open all the way. All right, let's do some driving in the Escalade IQ. It's raining again. Weather's been kind of weird all day. Rain and then sunny with rain, cloudy, windy, but we have plenty of things to talk about in terms of what it's like to drive the Escalade IQ. So this platform was developed from the ground up to be the electrified Escalade. It wasn't the gas version that they then electrified. It is on the modular Ultium platform, so there are some things that are shared with other vehicles like the Hummer EV or the GMC Sierra EV. For example, the air suspension. We have adaptive height air suspension. It can drop 2 inches or go up by 1 inch, and they had to tune it specifically for Escalade treatment, right? This has to be the most luxurious of the EV Ultium-based vehicles, so they try to eliminate some of the head toss that you might feel. To my impression of driving this so far today in all sorts of situations with curvy roads around town, choppy pavement on the freeway, it's moderately successful. There is still physics at play, and you definitely feel the heft, the size, and weight when you're going over larger bumps or cracks on the road, you can kind of feel the weight when things impact. We're also on those enormous 24-inch wheels with 35-inch tires. But it can do only so much. That being said, when you're on more smooth pavement on the freeway, it does a pretty good job of isolating you. It can be a little more floaty. Now on the curvy mountain roads, we definitely feel the size. This is a rather large vehicle. Now it does make a lot of power and torque. If we go into, actually I'm already in velocity mode, but I can turn it off. It's just on the steering wheel. It's not V mode, right? It's called velocity mode, and essentially is unlocking the full power and torque. Woohoo! Yeah, it's slippery out, and you feel it. A little bit of torque steer. Velocity mode essentially layers on top of whatever drive mode you're already in. So if I go here to my drive modes, this is currently my mode, but I can have velocity mode in Tour, in Sport, Snow and Ice. It all has the velocity mode function available. So I find it kind of amusing that, I'm gonna go back into my mode. That's where you can customize everything: acceleration, feel, the sound, suspension, and steering. Cadillac clearly was, we're classier. We're not gonna use the childish acronyms that our other sister brands follow, right? You know, Chevy has WOW, W-O-W, wide open watts, and then GMC being the most childish and fun with WTF, watts to freedom in the Hummer. It unlocks the full power and torque, 750 horsepower, 785 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds, which, as you can tell by the weather and road right now, we're not going to be doing anything close to that with the current situations. But they say it's close to the Escalade V in terms of the actual performance metrics, but it's going to be a very different way of approaching it. The feel is completely different. In terms of other technology for how this thing drives, we have independent front and rear suspension. We have magnetic ride 4.0, so magnetic ride dampers are fantastic. We have rear wheel steering, and that's a pretty big deal. In the Hummer, it's fantastic because it helps maneuverability off-road. You can do crab walk, and with the Escalade IQ, we have our own version of crab walk. So with the Silverado EV, they call it, I think, Sidewinder. And the Hummer, it's called crab walk, and here it's called arrivo mode, because in a Escalade you simply arrive, and it's the same thing where it turns the rear wheels in phase. You can kind of go at a diagonal, so you could just cross-brand all of them, and it's a crab sidewinder arrival mode, right? Same kind of thing, and it can help when you're trying to get into a tight space and also to show off. To be honest, a lot of it is the drama, the fun, little fun factor, right? I had a lot of people when I had the Hummer was like, can you do the crab thing? Can you take me out and do the crab thing? And I'm like, sure, let's go for a ride, and you'll see what it feels like. Now, rear wheel steering is great in a large vehicle like this. Couple scenarios. When you're in a tight parking spot, you're trying to maneuver it, it'll shrink the turning radius. Turning radius is just under 40 feet for the Escalade IQ. And to put that into context, that's like comparable to a Bolt EV, which is a vehicle that could probably fit inside the Escalade IQ. So that really helps. The wheels will turn up to 7.2 degrees out of phase to really shorten that wheelbase virtually. And at higher speeds, they can turn in phase to help with stability. So rear wheel steering is pretty fantastic. I also mentioned that adaptive height air suspension. So you can change the height here on the left side. Nope, that's the trunk. I hit the wrong one. Luckily, that did not open at speed. So I can go to entry, exit, normal, or increased. But then if you hold it, we go into low ride mode. Avoid speed bumps, curbs, obstacles, respect the low ground clearance, keep it low and slow. It literally drops the air suspension all the way down, like below even entry and exit. It's like this little Easter egg mode, and they literally call it low ride mode. I gotta go find a parking lot to try this, to see what it looks like from the outside. So that's kind of fun. But let me go back to normal because we are on an actual road right now. So air suspension, rear wheel steering, magnetic ride, all those things add together to make this thing definitely feel maneuverable. Now, compared to the Escalade V, I think a lot of people are going to make that comparison, even though obviously one is a ridiculous supercharged V8 and one is fully electrified. The personalities couldn't be more different. I don't think buyers technically would be cross-shopping it. The Escalade V is an unhinged child. It is so ridiculously loud and over the top and just sheer fun, hilarity. It makes no sense for an Escalade to make noises and drive the way it drives. This feels a little more, I would say, sophisticated, right? Smooth, torquey. But in terms of actual dynamics, you feel the weight. I think if I'm trying to have fun in my gigantic full-size luxury SUV, I would still go for the Escalade V. This one is quite nice to cruise around town, definitely nicer than the Escalade V in that instance, right? And also to be driven in. If you have the executive rear seat package in this thing, I will happily be chauffeured around in the back seat. It's comfortable, the fantastic sound system, massage seats and everything. So I don't really think you would want to really cross shop the two of them because the personality is just so different. So we also have variable regen on demand, which is this little paddle here on the left side of the steering wheel. We do have the one pedal driving, you can change the level of that in the drive mode selection, but this paddle here is pressure sensitive and essentially allows you to pick how much regen braking you have. So if I pull it lightly, it'll gently regen brake. If I pull it all the way, it's a pretty good amount of regen braking to slow the vehicle down. And I actually personally really prefer using this single paddle. It's pressure sensitive, it's kind of fun to play around with, to not use the actual brake pedal itself. You just let off and gently hold this, and it almost feels like a game. It's fun. I know one pedal driving has a similar kind of thing to it, and if you want that, you can definitely set it up in the drive mode system to have one pedal driving, but I'm a fan of this paddle. Some EVs, they have just a paddle, let you pick what level of regen. They're like the discrete different tiers. For this one, you can really just modulate it as you would a brake paddle, right there. That's kind of fun. Definitely fun. We have Super Cruise standard. You got a 3-year standard subscription. Whoa, it's raining pretty hard actually. 3-year subscription for Super Cruise, which is fantastic when you're on the freeway. Supported map, hands-free road. It will watch you, so you have to keep paying attention. And of course, we have plenty of luxury features. We've got the heated steering wheel. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that on. I'm gonna turn my massage seat on, which is on this lower screen right here. Relief is pretty good. It does feel big, tall, commanding, and buyers of vehicles like this, they enjoy the visual seating position, looking out, right, your view line, the presence you have on the road. I mean, parking, hopefully you have very large parking spots. Your garage is very spacious. Make sure you measure your garage before you pick up a Escalade IQ or IQL, just to make sure it'll actually fit, because that's the worst thing. You buy it and you realize it doesn't fit in your garage, then what do you do, right? Ooh, steering wheel's getting warm. Digital rear view camera, the giant panoramic roof we already showed you, and the sound system, guys. The sound system is pretty impressive. We cranked it really loud earlier, and it was like shaking the mirrors, but the clarity was still pretty good. But 38 speakers, 42 if you have the executive second row package. That's a lot of speakers, and honestly, is it overkill? Probably. Could you achieve a similar level of surround and Iceland and the depth of everything with, call it, 26 speakers? 100%. But, you know, once we get to this tier of vehicle, it's almost as if it's a exercise in excess, right? How much more can we give the consumer? Instead of going that way, I'm going to go ahead and flip a U-turn, and just that turning radius with the rear wheel steering makes it so convenient. Actually, I can feel the back kind of pivoting. Rear wheel steering on these large SUVs and trucks is definitely a phenomenal feature. Oh boy. There's not as much of the squat compared to the Hummer when you get on it. There's a little bit more of the drama, but you can definitely feel the weight transfer back as you kind of start gliding away. I say gliding because it doesn't have the sudden acceleration that some other EVs do. GM doesn't seem to tune them as aggressively in that way. I know some of it might be the weight. This is quite heavy, but a Rivian or some of the Tesla models, and I think I've heard the, like the Lucid Gravity, they're gonna be a little more snappy. This one, I would describe it as wafting. If the Hummer EV is like driving a tank, this would be like cruising in a yacht. That's kind of what it feels like. You're very numbly isolated from the world to just waft your way along in your mansion on wheels. Man, it's getting real foggy. It feels like I'm in like Pacific Northwest or something on these mountain roads. This is obviously like the least ideal situation, other than like a massive snowstorm, to have a dynamic drive up in the mountains, keeping it slow and safe. We were on some pretty tight, curvy roads earlier, and the rear wheel steering does help a lot. This is not a canyon carver by any means, and yeah, going over some of the undulations and bumps, you just feel the size and weight. But at the same time, sometimes buyers of these cars like that. They like the size and scale. Driving a Rolls-Royce Cullinan feels like you're cruising around on a block of marble, right? So it's not meant to be agile. They said maneuverable, and I really think it's because of the rear wheel steering. Best driving, I think I'd go for an Escalade V, partially because of the noise, but the lighter weight. It's getting darker now, so you can see some of the ambient lighting on the inside. We can change it to like 126 different interior ambient lighting colors. The big screen, I don't mind it. Actually don't mind it. You know, some of these giant curved ultra screens, whatever you want to call them, this is the 55-inch pillar-to-pillar screen. When they first came out, I was like, man, that's too much screen. But when they're integrated well into the cabin, it doesn't feel like an afterthought. It is rather immersive. Now, that one there, without the passenger anymore, just says Escalade IQ, so that doesn't do anything. Another vehicle that has a big curved screen that I recently spent time with was the Lincoln Nautilus. That one's set a bit further forward, and you actually get the full screen view where you can actually have little tiles there for weather and the time and things like that. So a slightly different implementation. I think BMW, I thought I saw, was working on a version of iDrive that also has this big curved screen, but Escalade is here now with this big curved screen. Tons of real estate, and it works pretty well. I mean, it works pretty well. I miss physical buttons, definitely miss physical buttons for some of the controls down here. I do wish there were physical buttons, but it definitely cleans up the interior. This is very simple, just the rotary dial here, which interfaces with up there, and then you have a volume knob. At least we still have a volume knob. You don't need to do some sort of weird twirly hand gesture to control the volume. And the steering wheel has plenty of controls on it too. But this is the digital luxury future, I guess. Definitely Cadillac is embracing that hardcore, obviously, with a fully electrified Escalade. Let's talk about the value. So how expensive is an Escalade IQ? And the answer is yes, it is very, very expensive. Base price of about $130,000. I'm gonna avoid that tree branch there. $130,000 starting price, which is about $40,000 more than the entry-level gas Escalade. That is definitely quite a big delta without a doubt. But you do have a lot of standard equipment for the Escalade IQ. A lot of stuff is coming, so it's very well equipped. You can go up a tier to the Luxury 2 or Sport 2. So they have two personas, Luxury and Sport. Luxury, really, they're personas. It doesn't change the suspension tuning or the power output. It's really just a visual identity in persona for the model. So the Luxury one has some of the brushed metal finishes and things like that, whereas on the Sport, it gets all the darkened trim to make it look a little sportier, kind of similar to the regular gas Escalade with a Sport or the Platinum. So it's a persona. If you go up a tier to the Luxury or Sport 2, it jumps to about $150,000, but then you can start checking options boxes. One of the big ones is the executive second row seats. That's a $9,500 option. There is a matte finish paint available, which will add a couple $1,000s to the price tag. And I decided to go crazy and just check all the boxes on the configurator last night. And I pretty much loaded out an Escalade IQ to about 170-ish thousand. I was like 171,000 in that range. So these are pretty expensive. That's a lot. Escalade V is also in this price range. Again, very different personality, very different experience compared to this. So you kind of have your option now if you want to spend 150 grand on a ridiculous, slightly over the top Cadillac Escalade. Well, are there any competitors? Not really. There are other three-row electric SUVs. I mean, Kia has their EV9, obviously the Rivian R1S, Tesla Model X, now Lucid with the Gravity, but nobody has something of this scale, this magnitude, this amount of tech and luxury, really, unless Lincoln decides to do a fully electrified Navigator or Rolls-Royce decides to do some sort of like electrified Cullinan. This is the option. If you want a full EV, big, full-size executive luxury SUV experience, you're going for the Escalade. So they're kind of in this segment by themselves. I think we'll probably see cross-shopping conquest from the gas models, whether it's a Navigator, a Grand Wagoneer, maybe the Lexus LX, the Infiniti QX60. Maybe people want to try the EV life and they'll go into something like this. It's very wealthy people buying it. They said the average household income is over $300,000. People who like the first class experience, no compromises, luxury tech. Obviously, that's somebody who's going to be shopping for this. And the age range actually said was, they said Zennials. I'm guessing that's Gen X and Millennials, that intersection, age 38 to 48 range. So people with a lot of disposable income, maybe a family, you need some space in the back, maybe you've enjoyed your regular gas-powered Escalade and you want to go for the EV life and get an Escalade IQ. Final impressions, takeaways, definitely impressed. The range is pretty stupendous. I mean, we're showing 57%, 254 miles. We've been driving all over Northern California, around the San Francisco area today. Curvy mountain roads, not ideal circumstances right now. Driving it hard, accelerating fast, all of that. A little bit of freeway driving. And the range, I mean, is literally no range anxiety at all. So that is a huge perk, obviously, because the battery pack is utterly enormous. I mean, we were driving the Optic, so the baby, the entry level, or they call it the gateway Cadillac EV. That thing had like an 85 kilowatt hour battery pack. So this is there's like 2.5 times the size, which gets you that 460 miles of range. The tech and luxury, I do love auto closed doors, power open and closed doors. That is something that I am a big fan of in any application. It just makes it feel more, it spoils you, right? It's like, oh, of course not. You don't need to strain yourself opening and closing doors. So I'm glad they finally have that enabled here on this. I believe you can also get that on the gas version, if I'm not mistaken. Sound system, wild. Just like so many speakers. More is better. This is so American. More, right? I do like tech integration, it's comfort, it's pretty quiet, isolated, but in terms of driving dynamics, yes, it's maneuverable. Yes, it makes it a bit easier to park with rear wheel steering, and you can hustle it up and down a mountain road. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's a fun, exciting drive like the Escalade V gives you, and you absolutely feel the size and weight. But if it's something you want to have a big Escalade to go waft around in serene silence, plenty of torque and passing power to demolish anybody on the freeway probably, and still arrive with tons and tons of range remaining while getting massage and listening to your favorite music and so on and so on. Not a bad option at all. I'm impressed. It takes the Escalade ethos, distills it into an electrified platform. I say the Hummer is the most Hummer of EVs, and this is the most Escalade of EVs for sure. Absolutely for sure. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this first experience drive and review of the Cadillac Escalade IQ. Thanks for watching.